we're going to start off with the City of Vaughan. The City of Vaughan is going to tell us a little bit about, again, it's a development update. Some really exciting stuff happening up in Vaughan. I know our head office is up there. Kretschmar Surveyors, our own head office is up there. It's a real thriving community, a lot of development going on. They seem to really have some cool things happening, both for businesses as well as in terms of residential. Latest developments on VMC, milestone statistics, look at residential, commercial, civic projects coming down the pipeline. And without further ado, let me start Michelle off here.
Good morning, and thank you for tuning in, everyone. My name is Michelle Sampson, and I'm an Economic Development Officer with the City of Vaughan. I'm also the unofficial head cheerleader for the Vaughan Metropolitan Center, the downtown Vaughan is building from scratch. I get a lot of questions about what's happening in the VMC, and so I've made it my job to be as nosy as possible about everything going on. Over the next 10 or so minutes, it will be my pleasure to share my nuggets of wisdom with you.
Start video, you click that off. Is that
video we don't need?
I only ask one thing of you. I'm not a planner, and I don't know all the answers.
I always get everything.
I'm also not making the big decisions. So please go easy on me in the Q&A. That said, I will
want to mute your mic.
To the burning questions you have that I can't answer off the cuff. Okay, so I assume most of you know a little bit about the VMC, but for any newcomers, here's what it is in a nutshell. A 442-acre block at highways 400 and 407 is transitioning from low-rise industrial and retail uses to high-density, transit-oriented, complete community. It is designed from the ground up to be the new financial, innovation, and cultural center of Vaughan. Shown here is a rendering of what we expect it to look like in 15 or so years. Some of the buildings in there, like the Met and Transit City and KPMG Tower, are already there and built, but we do still have a ways to go. All of these sort of bland gray buildings are filler for the moment, and I can pretty much guarantee you that they will be much more exciting and visually appealing when they're actually built. So while the VMC has direct access to two major highways, this downtown is fundamentally designed to be pedestrian and transit oriented. It is built around the VMC Mobility Hub, which includes subway, rapid bus, and local bus stations, all linked with above and below ground pedestrian connections, and some cycling infrastructure as well. The subway in particular is a key differentiator for us. Vaughan is the only municipality in Toronto's suburban region with subway stations, and we have 3. And when the Yonge line is extended, we'll have even more. So the city first proposed a new downtown several decades ago, but the pace really accelerated in 2008 when the province announced that the subway line would be extended to this spot. The first development, a 37-story condo tower called Expo City, opened in 2015. Since then, our downtown has been growing faster and taller than anyone expected. As you'll see shortly, this is just the beginning. And the momentum hasn't slowed down in the last year. Despite COVID, we're still getting new development applications, and many of the applications already in the pipeline are still moving ahead. We're also hitting other kinds of milestones, like the opening of Balzac's Coffee, which as a big coffee drinker, I'm quite excited about, and PwC Canada's first Digital Resilience Centre. Festival became Canada's top-selling condo for 2020, selling out more than 1,300 units in 4 months. And as a sample of one of the applications that have come in, Smart Centres came in with a huge new mixed-use development that checks off 4 asset classes, including office and hotel. So here's a sort of a data snapshot of our pipeline right now, including all of the projects from early stage proposals right up to built and occupied. Now keep in mind that these numbers don't include the pre-existing buildings like, say, IKEA. They also don't include future development plans that will happen eventually, but haven't been submitted to us yet. There is still lots of land to be developed. Okay, so now let's take a look at the specific developments in that pipeline, plus the latest details on things like parks and other community amenities. I'm going to whip through some of them fairly quickly. My primary goal is essentially to give you a list of what's officially on our books and where to get more information. So let's start with the developments currently under construction. All of the Transit City buildings are well underway. Towers 1 and 2 are occupied, while Tower 3 isn't far behind. Tower 4 and 5, as well as the purpose-built rental tower that's going on the same site, are approaching ground level. And Mobilio, our first townhome and mid-rise community, is also well underway and a very active construction site. Next, we have the developments that are council approved. All have started marketing or selling, except for 2901 Highway 7, which is seeking amendments to their approved plan. We have brief project files on these at myvmc.ca. Next, we move on to our 8 formally submitted developments. The first 4 are shown here and the other 4 are on the next slide. While we don't have project files for these on myvmc.ca, you can find information about the more active ones on the myvmc.ca news page. There are fairly recent posts about all 4 of these applications and 7800 Jane as well. Many of those posts are from Urban Toronto, which has been very actively watching the VMC and is a great resource, but I draw from a lot of other sources as well. And check back regularly because I try to share articles as soon as I see them. Sometimes that's twice a month, sometimes it's twice a week. You never know. Okay, and here are the very early stage projects. All new developments in Vaughan start with a pre-application consultation to make sure everyone understands the city's process and requirements. So that's where these are at. And then once the developers are ready, they'll submit a formal application. And if you're wondering about this image, it's a rendering of the South VMC master plan and some of the lands around it. Quadrille, which owns the South VMC area, has about 80 acres of land south of Highway 7. So Mobilio and Festival are just the start of what you'll see from them. And if you're wondering where all these developments are going to be, here's a map. I think LandPro shared a brochure with this map with everyone, but if you didn't get it, reach out to me and I'll send you a copy. Actually, I'll go back for a moment, just as a quick update. So Smart Centers, which is our largest landowner, has the bulk of this block up here, minus a couple pieces. And then the Quadrille master plan is sort of down in here. Okay, so since the downtown is about more than just homes and workplaces, here's an update on what else is coming soon to the VMC. Later this year, you can expect the VMC Center of Community to open in PwC YMCA Tower. It's been delayed due to COVID, but barring any more unexpected surprises, this facility with a 77,000 square foot YMCA, daycare, library branch, and community space should open later in 2021. We don't have a date yet, but installation is underway for the VMC's first permanent public art display, a 10,000 square foot digital light gallery. So this is going to be on the podium of Transit City 3 facing into the bus terminal. So that is going to give bus riders something very big to watch while they wait. And if you were eagle-eyed during my milestone slide, you might have seen that we opened our first public art piece earlier this year, but that is technically temporary, even if it will be brightening up Highway 7 for many years to come. And longer term, we're also working on a cultural arts center for the VMC. The feasibility study is done, and soon we'll start working on the next phase, which involves finding the right site and partnership model. Planning for a number of parks is also underway. Central Park is a 9-acre park that will be within Smart Center's Smart VMC master plan community. Edgeley Pond and Park, which is over here, and Expo Strata Park are on the northeast corner of Highway 7 and Jane. And Millway Avenue will be getting a linear green space south of Highway 7. Is that it? No, there will be lots more parks and open spaces, big and small, forming a web of pedestrian-friendly havens throughout the VMC. In fact, A Parks and Wayfinding Master Plan is one of the many studies and plans the city is currently working on. As I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, the VMC is growing faster and denser than we expected. So the city is taking on this work to make sure that our vision for downtown Vaughan is still met. That means we're taking another look at pretty much everything from the infrastructure under the roads to the traffic on top of them, to the heights of the buildings, the nature of the built form, even the boundaries of the VMC. So most of these studies will be happening over the next couple of years. So keep an eye on places like myvmc.ca for updates about that. So that is everything at a glance. If you want to see more, learn more, or go deeper, I've listed some options here. I'm especially partial to the Vaughan Rising podcast, which has episodes in season 1 with our 3 biggest developers, including Cortel Group, Quadrille, and Smart Centers, where I chat with Mitchell Goldhar himself. We also have episodes about the YMCA and how Niagara University landed within our borders. So I'm available for the Q&A right now, but feel free to reach out afterwards using these coordinates as well. And yeah, looking forward to hearing your questions. Thank you so much for your time.
Michelle, fantastic. Thank you so much. Apologies for the technical glitches. That's all me on this end. And you're really good at this. My goodness, fantastic. Who'd have thought that somebody could make an update on a downtown so energized and exciting? Well done. Good job. I learned a lot.
That's why they let me keep calling myself head cheerleader.
Fantastic. You know what? The renditions look fantastic, but I drive through there and past that downtown area all the time, and it really is coming along nicely. I'm wondering if you can speak a little. We've got a few questions coming in on the chat, but I wonder if you could speak a little bit more about the upcoming office space, the developments that are upcoming, capacity, who we're seeing coming in, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so that's my main area as an economic development officer. That's you know, why I do a lot of this promotion, to try and make sure that we get a great mix of office and retail tenants coming in. So yeah, so as you might have seen in the presentation, we have 3 office developments on the books right now, and you know, obviously, you know, timing is always going to be subject to change depending on how things roll out, but from what I know, and you know, if there's any realtors in the group who are, you know, considering or have clients for office space, that kind of thing, the Smart Centers development is likely to come first. We're looking at probably 2 to 3 years for that one for occupancy. The Metris one likely to be a bit later than that. I haven't heard a specific timeline from them, but the application is moving along pretty well. And then the Ripple Developments one is going to be a bit longer term because there's an existing office building on that site. You might know it as the one anchored by RBC on Highway 7. So they have to consider their existing leases, then demo, and then construction.
Very cool, very cool. So I know we didn't want to make LandPro all about COVID and the lockdown, but when we talk about office space and new developments, I wonder if there are any insights you can give us in terms of the growth that you're seeing. Are you seeing residential growth coming mainly from people who are moving out of downtown and want to come out to somewhere that's slightly more affordable? Or are you seeing it being mostly people who work in the area? What's that balance that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I only have some anecdotal kind of evidence on this. Whenever I'm chatting with friends in real estate, I try to get a sense of that. There's certainly a mix of investors and you know, people who plan to live in the unit. So there's that factor. My sense is that you know, price isn't necessarily one of the biggest drivers. This area isn't dramatically less. It is subway adjacent, so you're going to pay a subway adjacent premium to some degree, but you do get a little bit more space than you might in some of the very small units downtown. And yeah, I mean, you know, especially some you know, some core people forget that people want to be in the suburbs. There's a lot of people who want to be in the suburbs. They want to be near their families out there. They want to start a family, or they work out there. Vaughan, an interesting fact is that Vaughan is a net importer of workers. We actually have more jobs than we have working age people. So Vaughan is not the bedroom community you might think it is. So I think all of those reasons are driving the very high interest in residential in the VMC. And just to flip that to the office, I mean, that's obviously a big discussion as well. But what's really interesting is that a lot of the discussion is saying that suburban office might be a bit of a winner in this, as companies are looking to do maybe a hub and spoke kind of model or be closer to their employees who live in the suburbs. And with flexible work, that can make a big difference. But on top of that, so PwC does their emerging trends in real estate, and they talk specifically about how transit connected suburban communities like the VMC are especially likely to be resilient through all of these changes.
Very good. And in terms of the types of business that you're looking to attract, is there a particular, is Vaughan mostly attractive or largely attractive to a particular type of segment or sector of industry or commerce, or is it very broad ranging? Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, speaking across Vaughan, we have an extremely diverse economy. We're very lucky on that point that we have a huge amount of manufacturing and construction and logistics and transportation and warehousing, but we also have a really great and growing segment of professional services and technology and fire and retail. We legitimately have a very diverse economy within the VMC. A lot of the decision of who's getting into that office space is driven by the developers. So Smart Centers being our first to build office space so far, they've preferred banking and head office and professional services. Obviously, the first two towers are anchored by KPMG and PwC. So that's where we've gone so far, but it'll be interesting to see who's coming into the other office towers.
And especially with all these unexpected things that keep happening to us, like a pandemic, right? It seems to change everything on us. And I think what I found interesting, which I'm sure is going to be a challenge for you guys. By the way, if anyone wants to ask a question, just raise your virtual hand and unmute yourself and just jump in, okay? In the meantime, we've got about, 5-7 minutes. I'm going to keep chatting with Michelle because I find her really interesting and I'm fascinated about some stuff. Please jump in if you want to ask a question, okay? This shouldn't just be me. But I wanted to find out from you when we consider what happened in the last year, how has that changed, has it changed the City of Vaughan's approach to long-term development? I know when we heard Dan Marinovich's panel or discussion about the future of office space and how there seemed to be a sentiment, at least on that panel, that everything's just going to snap back to pretty much the way it was before. I've spoken to a lot of people who aren't in the senior positions that Dan and his colleagues were in, and they've said, no, we love working from home. I really want to keep working from home. What are you hearing? What are you discovering? And has the City of Vaughan made any accommodations for what you're learning?
I guess there's a lot of questions and points in there. From sort of how I'm doing my work, I'm very much on the promotion side and just getting the word out about the VMC. So that hasn't changed. We've been kind of hedging our bets and also figuring that, we would continue to be resilient and do well and still be a very attractive location for businesses and for people. When we're speaking specifically to the VMC, a lot of things are changing and Vaughan's approach is changing, but those were from trends that were happening before COVID. We've continued to see such interest. So, if suddenly the interest in all the developments had stopped, then, things might have been a bit different, but things kind of kept moving along and we still had such interest in residential and all of that. And, that feeds into some broader conversations we've been having lately about the fact that the interest has actually been so much higher than the city anticipated when we first did our secondary plan in 2010. We were making assumptions on, sort of 30-story maximums for buildings, and we've approved a 60-story condo tower, and because we're expecting, particularly on the residential side, to be so much, larger than those original assumptions. That's why we're doing all of these new studies and really reconsidering, how do we continue to meet this vision that we've set out for ourselves and make sure that the people who are moving in are getting the best quality experience in the place that they possibly can.
And I don't think that was just you who experienced this sense of, okay, things are continuing through 2020. I think across our industry, whether you're a residential realtor, a commercial realtor, a developer, a planner, we're surveyors by trade. I don't know if people know that at Protect Your Boundaries, we're actually a survey firm. Yes, we do this conference. We host this conference, and this is our conference, but that's all part of the experimentation that we love to push into and the innovation. But we're surveyors. And when the pandemic hit, the big question was, what's going to happen to our industry? Is it going to just dry up? Are people going to freeze? And what we found that no, everything has continued. In fact, right now we're seeing an absolute boom, but all through 2020, things remained largely unchanged for us, which was interesting. Karen has a question for Michelle. Karen, unmute yourself and fire away.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, Karen, go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you for taking my question. My main question right now is actually regarding the demographics that you guys see currently and what you guys have projected. Seeing as it is in close proximity to downtown, and you guys are, leaning heavily on the transportation factor. Are you guys seeing a younger demographic moving in, maybe smaller families? Maybe you can speak a little bit more to what you guys have currently and what you guys are projected to kind of grow into.
I wish I had more of that information top of mind. I know we've been collecting more information on the current demographics and our projected demographics as part of all these studies that we've been doing. Families are definitely part of the mix, and we really want to encourage it. Some of the projections are saying maybe we have less just because the developments that are coming in have skewed more towards mostly one, but also 1 and 2 bedroom communities units. So that obviously is going to bring fewer families, more on the the younger ages, perhaps some who are in that sort of older downsizing kind of phase. But we're definitely trying to encourage more of the larger units and the townhouse units. So it'll be interesting to see as say Mobilio comes online, and as people move into that community, like that will really balance out, I think, some younger families and a different demographic. So that's unfortunately, I'm sorry, that's not a great and definitive answer, but if you reach out to me, I can see what I can pull up from those studies that we're currently doing and maybe give you a more specific answer.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for your response.
Michelle, thank you so much. That was terrific.
Thank you so much, Chris. If I can inject one thing, some of you might remember us as having the VR headset, and that was one of our big draws over the last couple years. Now, we just actually updated our 360-degree tour. So even if you came by the booth and took it, I would highly recommend that you check out the updated video on YouTube to see how things have progressed.
Fantastic. Thanks a million, Michelle. Fantastic.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Day. I hope you get to enjoy this day today. Absolutely gorgeous out there finally, right? So yes. Great. Thank you. Okay, everyone. So we're going to move on with our program. And next up are our friends, partners, colleagues, and supporters, Zeifmans. And Zeifmans is one of Canada's leading accounting firms. They get our space. They've been in our space for many, many years. They're not just any accounting firm. They are one of the leaders in Canada, but they really understand the land and development industry inside and out. And today we have Ahmad and David who are going to join us. I have a presentation to run to share with you. And the topic is 30 PRECs and RRSP eligible structures relating to real estate. I have no idea what that means, so I'm going to be paying attention. Hopefully you will too. Come up with some questions. Don't force me to think of all the questions, okay? You got to come up with some questions on this. We're going to run a quick, I think a 17-minute presentation, and then we'll have Ahmad and David available to answer questions at the end. So please take advantage of these. Guys are 2 partners in one of the biggest firms in Canada. This is the time to ask these guys some of these questions.
Welcome to EXPO 2021. and thank you for joining our webinar. Today, we will talk about personal real estate corporation and RSP eligible real estate structure. My name is Ahmed Aslam. I'm a partner at Zyphers LLP. I've been in public practice for over 20 years, serving small mid-sized clients and focus on startups, real estate, and services sector. I'm also part of the quality control team at Zyphers and oversee various audit and insurance engagements. Now, I would like to invite my partner, David Posner, to provide a brief introduction. David.
Thanks, Ahmed. So I'm David Posner. I'm a partner. I've been here since 2006. I focus on accounting and tax with a specific focus on the real estate industry. Back to you, Ahmed.
Thank you, David. In terms of our agenda today, before we begin our presentation, I will provide you a quick introduction to Zyphers LLP. Then I will invite David to share his thoughts on personal real estate corporation. I will then go through RSP eligible real estate structure, and we will conclude our webinar with a Q&A session. So let's begin. We are a full service tax, accounting, and business consulting firm based in Toronto, Canada. We are ranked as one of Canada's top 20 accounting firms by revenue. Beyond traditional offerings, our services include business advisory, valuation, corporate finance, transaction services, corporate turnaround and insolvency, and estate and succession planning, supporting over 9,000 clients throughout Canada through every step of the business life cycle. Let's look at some facts and numbers. As I mentioned, we are one of the top 20 accounting firms in Canada, with 18 local partners and 150 staff members based in Toronto, serving over 9,000 clients. We are part of Nexia, a global accounting firms network with 700 offices around the globe and 3,400 global partners and presence in more than 120 countries. Our services include audit and reviews under both Canadian and US accounting principles. We are registered with CPAP and PCAOB, which allows us to audit accounting firms, audit public listed firms both in Canada and US. We also have a very robust tax department. We do both Canadian and US corporate and personal tax compliance work, trust and estate tax specialty services, and we serve high net worth individuals. In terms of our advisory services, it includes corporate finance, succession planning, merger and acquisition, valuation, governance, risk, and compliance services. With that, let's get to our webinar. David, please.
Thanks, Ahmed. So I'm really excited to be here today because realtors and real estate agents, people from brokers have been asking me for years and asking accountants forever, when can they be able to incorporate? Because real estate agents in other provinces in Canada have been able to incorporate, and the advantages to incorporation for a real estate agent could be quite substantial, and they've been waiting and rumors and media has been putting things on, and finally, as at October 2020, a real estate agent that has incorporated their corporation in Ontario will be able to incorporate. Now, when people hear incorporation, there's a bunch of different things that they think about: who controls the corporation, who can sign for the corporation, and there is a lot there, but really what you really have to know, the main takeaway from this is the real estate agent that's licensed in Ontario is the shareholder of the corporation. They're the ones that control the corporation. They will be signing for the corp, so you're not allowed to put on a spouse or have other people there. The real estate agent who incorporated is the person that's going to be calling the shots for the corporation, and there's paperwork to know, and they have to make sure that documents are signed and it's all agreed upon between the brokerage and the agent. But the main takeaway that you have to know is that the real estate agent that's licensed in Ontario will be the one that's controlling the corporation in all aspects. So what people might want to know is why, right? People that don't know as much, they want to know, well, what's the big deal? Why might a real estate agent want to incorporate their business? And the main reason would be taxes, because a real estate agent, depending on their income, could pay income taxes as high in Ontario of over 53%. So think about it. Somebody earns income and more than half of their profits go to tax. And it hasn't really been fair because doctors and dentists and accountants and lawyers and very other types of businesses have been able to incorporate for years, and realtors now can't. So what does that mean? Generally speaking, and again, subject to various rules of tax, but generally speaking, a realtor will now, as long as if they incorporate, as long as they leave their money in the corporation, they will be paying approximately 13% tax. Now, if you think about it, 53% personal, 13% corporate, that's a massive savings. And if a realtor does well and they're making serious money, you can imagine the actual savings that they have there. They can let's say invest the money, they can do various things with it, but just imagine all that extra money that you have if you don't have to pay tax. Now, very important is if you're making money and you take that money out of the corporation, so the real estate corporation earns these funds, and then the realtor, who is the owner of the corporation, they want the money, they want to buy a house or they want to travel. Once that money comes into your personal hands, the whole tax savings is gone. So you really have to know that this tax savings is really there as long as the money is left in the corporation. Now, one of the other advantages of a corporation is when you're going to be taking the money out, you can hire let's say your spouse or your partner or somebody to work for the corporation. So when money comes out, as long as somebody's doing work for the corporation, they can take money out of the corporation also as a salary, say. So you can split the income to different people as long as they're taking advantage, as long as they're working for the corporation, and then you'd be able to take advantage of lower marginal tax rates for all of the people working for the corporation. There's other things that we can talk about, which is really health, insurance planning, stuff like that, which is beyond the scope of this a webinar. But you can always call after if you want to send an email. We'll be more than happy to talk to you. But those are the main advantages of having PREC. Why not? Why wouldn't somebody want to have a PREC? Well, the main reason why someone won't want to have a PREC is compliance and the cost. If a person is only dealing with themselves and they don't have a corporation, they have a personal bank account, they file taxes, it's pretty clean, right? Once you have corporations, you have to file for your corporation, you have to have corporate returns, you have to have corporate statements, you have to pay, it could be costly. You have to pay an accountant and a lawyer, and there's other filings, could be payroll filings, HST filings. So there is a cost, and it has to be worth it for you. The tax savings from the PREC has to be worth it for the cost. Usually it is, and most people find that it's worth doing because even though they will be paying some cost, then there will be nuisances of extra paperwork and compliance, right? It's still worth it, but I think it's important just to make sure that it's worth it before a person actually goes to incorporate. And you're always able to ask us, people call us up all the time, should we, shouldn't we? You can always ask to have that conversation, and we can see if it's the right thing for you. I'm now going to pass it on to Ahmed to talk about RSP eligible structures.
Thank you very much, David. That was very insightful. Let's jump to RSP eligible structures. Is it possible that you have a structure for your real estate business in a way that you can attract potential investors through their retirement savings plans, such as RSPs or TFSAs? A lot of the potential investors are looking to get some exposure to real estate markets. However, they are unable to do so directly. For example, one cannot simply take funds accumulated in their RSP to buy a rental property. Registered savings plans such as RSP, RESP, RRIF, or RDSP, or TFSAs are required to limit their investments to certain qualified investments. Today we will review 3 different structures that may be considered qualified investment under the Income Tax Act. So let's first look at the specified small business corporation. The term specified small business corporation simply means a Canadian corporation that is controlled by 1 or more Canadian residents, and that has at least 90% of the fair market value of its assets used in an active business in Canada or primarily in Canada. Now, investors can invest in a specified small business corporation to their RSP if they, together with the people who they do not deal with at arm's length, own less than 10% of the issued shares of that specified small business corporation. A qualifying active business is also a defined term, which only includes any business which is carried in Canada, except one where the principal purpose is to earn income from property in the form of interest, dividends, rent, royalties, or gain from disposition of property. A qualifying business may include a business of leasing property other than real property for a retail or wholesale business. The corporation's business will be considered to have been carried on in Canada if at least 50% of its employees are engaged in the business in Canada, or at least 50% of its salaries and wages are paid for services provided in Canada in respect of that business. In summary, an eligible corporation is generally a taxable Canadian corporation which uses substantially. When we say substantially, most of the time it means 90% or more. So it's a taxable Canadian corporation which is using 90% or more of its property in a qualifying active business in Canada. The corporation must be a small business corporation at the time the shares are acquired by the investor through their registered savings plan, or at the end of the taxation year before they acquired the shares. The specified small business corporation is just like any other corporation and gets taxed on its profits. It can only distribute its post-tax profits to shareholders, which makes it slightly less attractive for investors who are coming to registered savings plans because they lose the tax deferral part of that structure. Now let's look at some other structures which may allow us to benefit from the tax deferral. So the second structure I want to talk about is a mutual fund trust. Units of a mutual fund trust can also be considered qualified investment for registered savings plans, including RSPs, CFSAs, and RESPs. A mutual fund trust is essentially a conventional inter-legal trust that satisfies certain qualifying requirements set out in the income tax act. To qualify as a mutual fund trust, the trust must be a unit trust resident in Canada. It must comply with the investment restrictions, and an MFT also needs to comply with minimum distribution requirements and must at least have 150 unit holders, with each owning more than $500 of fair value. It cannot issue 50% or more of its units to non-residents. But remember, you can have a non-resident investor. It's just that they cannot constitute more than 50% of the outstanding units. And an MFT must limit its activities to the investment of its funds in property or acquired, holds, maintains, or manages real estate property that is capital property to the trust. The investment restrictions include requirement that no more than 10% of the trust funds can be invested in securities of any one corporation other than a crown corporation. These restrictions are not particularly onerous in most cases, but they do require continuous monitoring because they must be met throughout each taxation year. The requirement under paragraph 108 sub 2A requires that the trust units must be redeemable at the demand of the holder and at a price determined and payable in accordance with certain conditions. MFTs can distribute 100% of their pre-tax income to shareholders And if they do so, they pay no income tax. That allows investors to wear RSPs, CFSAs, RESPs, make the most of their tax deferral structure. So that post the pre-tax distribution can continue to earn more investment income until at the end of the client's life, income starts being withdrawn by the plan holder. Now let's look at the last example in my webinar today. Mortgage Investment Corporation, or commonly known as MIX. MIX is a way for an individual investor to gain indirect exposure to real estate sector in Canada. And Mortgage Investment Corporation, or MIC, is an investment and a lending company designed specifically for mortgage lending, primarily residential, but in certain cases, sometimes commercial as well in Canada. Owning shares in a MIC enables investors to invest in a company which manages a diversified and secure pool of mortgages. In most cases, MIC shares are considered to be qualified investment for deferred income plans such as RSPs, RESPs, CFSAs, and MIC pools shareholders' funds and capital and lends that capital out as a mortgage on a residential and commercial real estate. The MIC earns income from those mortgages as interest or general fees. The MIC must have at least 20 shareholders and typically is widely held. No shareholder may hold more than 25% of MIC's total share capital. At least 50% of MIC's assets must be residential mortgages or cash or insured deposits at CDIC member financial institutions. Most of the chartered banks are CDIC members. And they may invest up to 25% of its assets directly in real estate, but may not develop land or engage in construction. Because MIC is a flow-through investment vehicle, it pays no income tax and allows them to distribute all of their earnings to investors in the form of distribution. So these are the three different kinds of structures which you can set up to allow investors to come through their registered savings plans and make use of the tax deferral available to them through the registered savings plan. Now, we will be happy to answer any questions you may have about either David's presentation or RSP eligible real estate structure.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you guys. It's pretty, it's important but dense material, isn't it? It's quite, it's like all protein there. If you have a question to ask, I know the sound was a little off there. I'm not sure if that was me on my end or not. I apologize if that's the case, but if you have questions, raise your virtual hand or just pipe in. You've got a couple of real experts here. Just to kick us off, though, I do have a question for you guys. I mean, there's so much to consider, and sometimes, you know, we work so hard in our business. Sometimes we don't have time to work on our business. And when we look at something like the decision to incorporate or not, there are so many factors to consider, and it's difficult to know where to start in making the decision. Can David or Ahmed, can you just summarize briefly, what is the key pivot point at which one would say, okay, yes, it looks like it might make sense, or no, I'm below some sort of threshold below which it would make sense? David and Ahmed, I saw you both on there. Does one of you want to pipe in on this one?
Yeah, sure.
Hey, David.
Can you hear me?
Of course I can.
Beautiful. How are you, Chris? Pleasure to see you this morning.
It's quite the office you got there.
Oh yeah. Well, I try, but
I think I need some of your stuff. Maybe, I don't know.
Come by. After this all ends, I'll be more than happy to not wear a mask with you, give you a hug, and we'll come over here. But the question,
what's that threshold that one would consider?
Yeah. So really, the ultimate threshold is that when a realtor or anybody is really making more money than they need, that's really when you would start. So if a person, let's say, is making a year, let's say 100 grand, let's just say, and they only need for their actual, life, for their rent or their property, like for their life, let's say 50, that's when you would start to incorporate. Because if you incorporate and all of the money that you make in your corporation you actually need, and you're going to take it out of your corporation to go into your personal hands, it's not worth it. I mean, there might be some other reasons why it could be worth it, but as a very general rule, people always ask the question. And really it is if you don't need all of the money that you make, that's when it's really time to incorporate, because that's where the tax savings happens. The savings only exist while the money stays in the corp. But if you're taking the money out, that really, all that tax savings is just going to go, it's just gone, because it's good. You'll be paying taxes at your personal rate. So that's really where it becomes. And some people, and you don't have to incorporate now. Like some people, if they think they're going to make serious money soon, then wait. You don't have to incorporate now. Wait. Keep doing what you're doing now. And if you think in a year it's time to incorporate, you can do it then. So that's really the answer. There's other factors involved, but that's definitely the main factor here.
Yeah.
No question.
Thank you. We have another question that's just come in I want to ask you, but you guys are a large company. Like, we work with you, we know you guys, but you are a large company, and maybe some realtors are thinking, what, how am I going to get these guys' attention? It's going to cost me an arm and a leg. Can you talk about the different levels of engagement that one can have with you? And this isn't about being a sales pitch for you guys, but I want to make sure that people know that you're accessible at different levels. You don't have to be a giant brokerage or making millions of dollars as a realtor to be able to get this kind of advice and help. Yeah,
no, I would agree. So I'm a larger company. I would agree. We aren't the biggest, we aren't the smallest. We're considered, let's say, the middle, really. But the type of work that we do is like really the entire spectrum. So we have a lot of clients that are what you might call smaller clients, and we love working with them. So really, if you think that you're a smaller client, I would still, reach out and, call. It doesn't hurt to have a conversation, with us. And if we feel we could help you, we would tell you. And if the small chance exists that we really feel that, hey, you're probably too small, even though that typically doesn't happen, we're more than happy. Like, I know other people in like smaller firms that if I feel that you're, let's say, a better fit, I have no problem passing, or telling you that you can speak to somebody else. But I would say, especially realtors or people in the real estate industry, I would say 95 times out of 100, it's a good fit. So that never hurts to call. We'll always have a conversation. Sometimes people are afraid to call up lawyers or accountants. They're afraid, they don't want to get charged. Like, that's not how things work here. You can always call. We'll have a meeting, a call, and we'll usually in the phone call we could, or a Zoom, we could very quickly let you know the value that we have. Like, we usually give ideas that somebody might not have thought of. But yeah, I wouldn't say that we're that small. Yeah.
We have another question. Thank you. We have another question here. Is it worthwhile for a broker who is making more than 60K, but is elderly, over 75, and potentially doesn't have too many years left to work? Is it worthwhile in that kind of scenario, generally speaking?
Generally speaking, probably not. If the broker is making 60K, but the investment income that they have, from other sources makes their total income higher, right? Because they have their brokerage income plus other income, then yeah, maybe it is. But if somebody's simply making 60K and really that's the extent of their income, I wouldn't go through the headache. No, I don't think so.
Okay. Now, we've been talking specifically about real estate companies, brokers, and the possibility of incorporating. In the last couple of minutes that we've got here now, I screwed up at the beginning, so I'm going to give you some extra time here. Actually, we do have a couple of questions here. The first one: major differences of normal corp versus new format for realtors incorporation. So, what are the major differences? Let me see if I can add some words to this. What are the major differences? You see it? What are the major differences between a normal corporation versus the new format for realtors?
Okay, very simple. There's really not much. Like really, it's pretty much the same thing, the same filings, all of that stuff. The same tax planning is the same. The three, I would say very quickly, there's three things. Number one is in the realtor corporation, the realtor has to own it. Like they are the boss. Like in other corporations, you can bring in your wife or your friend or something like that. In these corporations, the realtor is the one that really controls everything. That's number one. Number two is I see a comment about insurance, and there is something in here we can kind of talking about this after, but I believe the insurance stays with the employee or the realtor. So the insurance doesn't really carry on into the corp. There are, I think, ways around it, but if you want to talk about that after, give me a call, please. And the last thing really is a real estate corporation is not allowed to hold real estate. So very quickly is if you make, let's say you're making funds in the corp and you have this corp, the real estate corporation is not allowed to trade in an own property. So the simple solution is that, again, if you want to give me a call after, I'm happy to talk about this, but you can incorporate a second company. You can lend the money from your company there, and that company can buy it. And in Canada, there's no tax issues if you open up two, corps. You can lend, the money over. It's totally clean. There's nothing really wrong with it. You have to make sure it's worth it, because every corporation, there's more filings. You just have to make sure from a cost point, it's worth it. But those are really the three things. Other than that, it's really pretty much the same thing.
Okay. Richard's asking what your setup fee and maintenance costs are. I'll let you deal directly with Richard on that. Okay.
Okay, Richard, if you want to send me an email, give me a call. It'll be my greatest pleasure to, talk.
One last question. And we've got Dan Miller waiting from PowerStream. Dan, if it's okay with you, we're just gonna run a little late on this one. We've got you set up, ready to go here, because it was my screw up earlier on with the AV. So one last question here. Would you please once again just briefly touch on specified small business corporation in about a minute, if you don't mind, David, if you can do that. I know I'm asking a lot there, but if you just touch.
That's Ahmed's part. Ahmed, you there?
I'll take that question. Thank you, Chris. So specified small business corporation is essentially just like any other corporation where you meet certain additional conditions so that your shares are eligible for people who want to invest through their retirement saving plan. So there are some restrictions in terms of the ownership and some restrictions in terms of what you can do and where you can carry on the business. So as long as you meet those ownership restrictions where nobody owns more than 10% of the company and who is investing in the company, and you are actually carrying on the business primarily in Canada, then you will be considered a specified small business corporation, whereby some people who want to invest through their registered plans are able to buy those shares and hold it in their retirement saving plans and take advantage of the tax deferral.
Excellent. Thank you. Guys, everyone here, part of the LandPro community, Ahmed and David are available. The links are in the chat. Contact Jessica at protectyourboundaries.ca if you need more information. Folks, thank you very much. 3D cityscapes. And this is one of the things we've discovered. Certainly we've discovered, I know many of you that I've spoken to have discovered the same things that we were forced into that we have now adapted to and are using. So here we go with 3D cityscapes, and we'll see you in a couple of minutes, about 6 minutes, and then we'll get Justin on to answer some questions.
Hey everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us here at 3D Cityscapes. We are so excited to share our technology with you. Without further ado, here's Justin Ritchie.
Over the last year, millions of people have lost their jobs. Economies have crashed, and we've seen mass movements of urbanites moving out to the suburbs. The market is changing. Things will eventually return to normal over time, but this pandemic has made most of us realize that we are much more susceptible to global pandemics than we thought. If the scientists are right, many of us could see 2 or 3 similar level events in our lifetime. We need to be prepared. Real estate has always been slow to adapt when it comes to technology. At 3D Cityscapes, we're looking to change that. We want to equip our clients to be ahead of the curve When it comes to their customers buying, for many, what is the most important purchase of their lives? Their home. If there's one thing that this pandemic has taught us, it's that we need to rethink how consumers engage with our product. These days, selling a home is not just about selling the product. It is also about selling the lifestyle that your customer is buying into. For all of our clients, and I'm sure for most of you, sales office traffic has decreased significantly. We need better ways to immerse the client into the lifestyle that you are selling them through your product. The traditional sales experience consists of spending large amounts of money building a physical sales office, model homes, making a physical scale model, and showing clients 2D floor plans and renderings. What 3D Cityscapes offers is a fresh new take on the home buying experience. Our immersive, hyper-realistic 3D interactive applications allow you to engage your buyers on a whole new level. Buyers can see your project or master plan community in all its glory before a shovel even hits the ground, and experience a lifelike version of the community and all it has to offer. If you like, you can even roam the community and your project with our virtual avatars, which are customizable to your preference. Many of our clients engage with us from the inception of their projects. We help them save time and money with the municipalities that they work in through the planning process, making the project visual and easy to understand for all the stakeholders involved. View things like shadows and angular planes, or show stakeholders multiple variations of your project in a single session. These days, community engagement is more important than ever when building a new community. 3D Cityscapes applications allow you to engage with the community members on a much deeper level and get feedback that can be quickly reincorporated into your design. The more you can make community stakeholders feel like a part of the process, the less likely you are to have resistance. When it finally comes time to selling your project, our applications allow your clients to dissect your project and be immersed in a way like never before. Users can break apart the building in order to see the floor layouts and easily view multiple floor plans at the same time, either in 2D or in fully immersive 3D, with the option to change colors and finishes in real time. Experience the actual view from your unit without ever taking a drone shot. Users can even send themselves floor plans and marketing material straight from the application, so you can be more environmentally conscious. After the leasing or sales are all said and done, many of our clients use the digital twins of their buildings for long-term asset management. 3D environments of leasable spaces can be redesigned to help prospective tenants imagine and design a space most efficient for them. Transit corridors and stations can be compared in relation to the property with live schedules and more. Internal building mechanical systems can be monitored via the digital twin using connected IoT sensors to do proactive maintenance and prevent system breakdowns, saving you time and money over the life of your asset. One great example of this is our application of the City of Washington, D.C. for our client, who is one of the largest real estate commercial firms in the world. We created a digital twin of the city and modeled a number of their assets in the area. This will empower our clients with the ability to continuously and more effectively release the spaces in their buildings. And by visually incorporating their real-time data, it allows their potential customers to be better informed when making their leasing or buying decision. The game changer, however, and what has really benefited our client, is the ability to stream this full application to anyone, anywhere in the world, on any device, using our proprietary cloud streaming technology. With the application embedded directly in their website, our client is now saving millions of dollars per year, simply by not having to fly potential clients around the world to view their properties, putting them up in hotels, and so on. Even before this global pandemic, this was a huge cost savings for them. And now with travel severely restricted, operations can continue in a mostly normal manner. Our in-house cloud streaming solution is the first of its kind, and with the ability to stream such heavy graphical applications with minimal latency and at a low cost, it enables our clients to gain a competitive edge when it comes to marketing their projects. Best of all, it allows our interactive experiences to run right from your website for as many simultaneous users as you choose. On average, using 3D Cityscape solutions, our clients see a 30% reduction in commissions paid to outside realtors and an average 20% decrease in their marketing costs. It also allows them to significantly reduce their sales cycle by providing a much more informative, immersive experience to the customer. And with our cloud streaming technology, the experience is easily available to anyone, anywhere, on any device. If you're looking for a game-changing, innovative way to plan for, sell, or manage your projects, this is it. I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to attend today's webinar. I will be sending everyone a recording of the webinar shortly, should you wish to watch it again. And if you have any questions, please feel free to call or email me.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. Let me start my video here. Here we go. We're back. So you guys are geeks of the highest order. This is phenomenal.
Oh, that's one way to put it. Yeah.
Please take that as a compliment. We are constantly striving to improve technology, find new ways of doing things, and we've really checked out your stuff a lot, your technology and your capabilities, and it really is quite spectacular. I absolutely love it. There are going to be some questions coming in. Thank you for supporting LandPro. Thank you for this. Now, this was a good high-level overview of what you guys do. Now, our audience today is made up of both people on the development side, but also realtors as well. Quite a few of our colleagues and friends out there who are commercial and residential realtors are part of this. Can you please, Justin, could you take a moment to speak to how this relates to, obviously, the development side, which you did here very well. How does it also relate on the regular real estate? What is the threshold of entry to working with you guys? If you're, say, just a broker or a realtor or a commercial realtor, that's not, that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I think on the developer side, it's pretty self-explanatory. It really gives the developer, well, it gives their potential buyers a much more immersive, interactive experience. Because today it's not just about selling the building and the product, it's also the community, the lifestyle, right? So that's an important part of it. And that's what these applications help prospective buyers to understand. And then from the realtor side, we actually, funnily enough, we have a lot of realtors who come to us for services, whether it's, you know, renderings, video, or the actual applications, where they have a particular listing that they're trying to sell, and the developer might not necessarily actually have adequate material in their minds to be able to sell this property. So a lot of them have actually come to us recently and for new developments throughout the province, and we've actually been doing some work for them, and then the developers take notice, and it's like, okay, maybe we should actually be doing this. And from the realtor side, when it comes to actually selling the projects, they find that it makes their job that much easier, right? So if the developer is using 3D Cityscapes with the immersiveness and the interactiveness and just the education that they get about the product from these applications, it makes the realtor's job that much easier, right? And then it's really just comes down to, you know, picking the unit that they want and securing the purchase.
Now you talked at length. By the way, if anyone has any questions, pipe in, ask in the chat, raise your virtual hand. In the meantime, I'm just going to enjoy having a chat with Justin here because I'm fascinated by this technology. It's hyper realistic, right? It's I mean, there's always this modeling has been around for ages, but this is hyper realistic.
Yeah, so we've actually improved it even further lately. We have our own AI department in house here, and we work with photogrammetry and a couple of other methods to create these really realistic city environments.
Very cool. Now, you spoke at length about how one promotes a development that hasn't been built yet by helping people imagine what it's going to look like and feel like and be like and to live in. You also mentioned something about proactive maintenance. What was that side of things? Can you delve into that a little bit, or did I miss it?
So definitely. So that's a little bit more on the not so much like the condo or home where they're being sold, but a lot of the commercial properties, retail properties, or like purpose-built rentals. So, you know, say an asset management group that owns a lot of these purpose-built rental buildings. I know Brookfield is getting into this a lot. We're doing some for Oxford Properties as well with their commercial properties, where basically they have, you know, post leasing or sales or whatever it is, we actually map out the and visualize like all the mechanical systems, HVAC, boilers, all of that stuff. And these days, especially with these new buildings, they're all sensor connected. They have IoT sensors connected to the HVAC systems, to, you know, you name it. They all communicate. And
Justin, sorry to interrupt. For those who don't know what IoT is, Internet of Things, can you just explain that very quickly?
Yeah, so basically connected sensors. So for example, let's say on your HVAC system, sometimes you'll have a sensor that can actually close and open the particular pipes, right? To allow for airflow or not to allow for airflow. So that's just an example. So when these devices are all connected, they can actually communicate with our digital twin. And that allows for the actual operation of the building as well, right? And you can have everything behind the walls that is modeled out. So once the building is actually complete, you're still able to see exactly where these systems are throughout, you know, the building, and proactively monitor them. So it helps with preventative maintenance because you're aware of issues ahead of time, or you can actually locate them specifically. So you're not having to, you know, cut out giant chunks of drywall and do all sorts of that stuff for repairs.
Wow, yeah. Amazing. Any questions coming in? Not just now. Some of the more, can you speak to some of the projects you're working on in the GTA right now? Can you divulge? Can you share?
Yeah, so we're doing a couple large master plan communities. So we have one, it's Lakeview Village out in Mississauga waterfront. So that's about 170 acres, master plan community. That's going to be about a 15-year project. A bunch of groups involved there. That's actually, well, it's a mixed use. We're doing projects, a couple for Broccolini, for Tridel, for Minto. So we have quite a base on the real estate side. And one thing that we're getting into a lot now, a lot of our clients who started with us on the sales and marketing side are actually getting in earlier than that now, at an earlier stage, more on the planning and the community engagement side, because there's a lot of, well, to give you an example, so Tridel recently won the Regent Park phase 2 bid. So they actually have us doing a digital twin of their concept because they're looking to go back and get slightly more density and also increase the amount of affordable rentals in the community. So it helps with not only, you know, the city and all the stakeholders there understanding what they're trying to accomplish, but it can also show, like, we're taking all of the proposed development applications from the city and extrapolating those into physical 3D models to show the density that's already been approved or is pending in the surrounding areas, right? And showing what the development of that community in the future will look like, not just what it is today. And then on the community engagement side of things, you know, that's a very, not contested area of the city, but there's a lot of moving parts with the community, especially being owned by Toronto Community Housing. So this type of tool really just allows them more engagement with the community, right? So they feel like they're more a part of the whole process. They can actually, you know, interact and look at the developer's design to get a better feel for how it's going to impact their community. And it just, you know, it's a more transparent process and helps to get better feedback.
Great. Question that's coming from somebody in the audience. Do you work with nonprofit organizations, social housing projects, that kind of thing? Maybe you've just covered a little bit of that, but can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, so we do work with nonprofit social housing. We're working on a project with United Church actually on some affordable housing initiatives.
Okay, fantastic. What level of detail is required to create a model?
So typically the process will include the client sending us architectural models, usually in the form of CAD, Revit, SketchUp, what have you. The architects usually have a 3D model of the building itself. And then if we're doing interiors, that's something that, you know, we'll work either with the developer or with their designer or whoever it is, to basically get all of the material samples, to get elevations for kitchens and stuff like that.
And do you go as far as incorporating the actual boundaries, the official boundaries from a survey perspective? Are you integrating that line work as well in there? Are you able to show here's the boundary of your property or your condo or anything else? Or is it purely off the architectural drawings and physically what one can see?
No, we can do that as well. So we're actually working on incorporating real-time data from Terranet and also working with, discussing with Kirchmar about something similar.
Love it. Thank you. Part of those discussions. It's very interesting, actually. Very, very interesting. Okay. My favorite question. What's the one question you haven't been asked that you wish somebody would ask you that you're dying to tell us about?
Oh, man. Put me on the hot seat.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Bearing in mind, we've got real estate lawyers, we've got realtors, we've got developers, we've got planners, architects, surveyors, condominium lawyers. We've got the whole gamut here today in the audience. What's the one question that you find not stumps you, but is one that is so germane to your involvement?
Okay, think about this one and kind of why 3D Cityscapes was created. Why has the development industry been so slow to adapt to technology?
Yeah, and that is something that we speak about every year at LandPro, that we're behind. I think it was George Karas in his presentation who talked about how much the pharmaceutical industry invests each year of their gross revenues into R&D versus the development industry, which is virtually nothing each year. So it's a level of catch up that we need to do, but it certainly seems like you guys are helping launch us forward, which is phenomenal. So
yeah, we're trying to help push everybody along a little bit.
Okay, excellent. Well, listen, thank you so much. There are no other questions. If it's okay, we'll move on to the next presentation. Justin, thank you so much, and for your support at LandPro and sharing insights today. Everyone, if you want to get in touch with Justin, please feel free.
My email is in the chat here.
Yep, email is going to be in the chat. He'll be sharing this presentation as well. If you need to coordinate anything, please just contact either Justin or Jessica at protectyourboundaries.ca, and we'll be able to help you out. Justin, thank you. Fantastic.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
Great. PowerStream. And we're going to talk about today, PowerStream is going to talk about a case study on using high-grade metering equipment in multi-residential and commercial properties for sub-metering. I took a look at this one earlier. It's really interesting. Check it out, guys.
My name is Daniel Miller. I'm the Director of Operations at PowerStream Energy Services.
Hi, my name is Joe Casola. I'm with PowerStream Energy Services, and I'm the Manager of Operations and Projects. PEZI's mission is to form partnerships with developers and condo corporations and provide them with sub-metering services for electric, water, thermal, and gas.
PEZI operates throughout the country of Canada. Our main focus right now has been the province of Ontario. We're licensed by the Ontario Energy Board. We have a sub-metering license to perform sub-metering services. Everything with PEZI is local. Our staff are based out of our Vaughan office, and our call center is based out of Newmarket.
PowerStream Energy Services has a transparent billing model. We pass on whatever utility charges are in that local distribution area.
The consumption rate that we charge our customers is the exact consumption rate that they would be charged if they were with the local distribution company. The developer and property managers and condo corporations can sleep easy at night knowing that their customers are being billed transparent. There's no upcharges, there's no lift on the cost of power, there's no lift on the cost of water.
The installation process on a new build requires us to meet early with the developers and engineers to understand what their requirements are. What is the nature of the project? What is the intent? Who do they want to build? Are there any shared services that need to be metered separately? All of these items get flushed out early in the project, and PowerStream Energy Services provides a clear, comprehensive design early on so that the expectations are met when the project is delivered. Once the system is installed, PowerStream Energy Services sends a third-party company that's highly trained under Measurement Canada regulations to verify each and every individual meter. The benefit for developers and condo corporations is it allows them to recover all the costs for the utilities.
We put together a package that we think is an attractive inducement coupled with an administration fee that works for the developer. Each individual unit is billed only for their consumption. So you see an instant reduction in the overall consumption for that building, somewhere between 20 and 30%.
The benefit for unit owners is that it allows them to have control over their energy consumption. By knowing how much energy they use on month to month, they can save by focusing on their energy habits and making changes to their consumption patterns.
My name is Julian McNabb. I'm the Vice President of Melbourne Property Management.
Hi, I'm Tass Arclis with Smart Energy Recovery. Formerly, I was the president and founder of Samara Property Management, which eventually became First Service Residential Ontario.
I was called in to work on a project on Yonge Street for a developer many years ago, and we were involved as property management consultants. This particular client had a vision to take one of the biggest and tallest buildings in Richmond Hill ever made and take it to market. And they had a vision, and they brought us in to manage the expectations of that vision and make sure it made sense operationally. Part of that role was that the client had expressed the desire to make sure that the unit owners would have a lot more control over some of the common expenses they would need to pay in this community. And naturally, looking at sub-metering the utilities was top of mind.
This was a building that Powerstream Energy Services acquired from another sub-metering company. We took it over, all the meters were installed. We weren't able to put the meter of choice for our company in. It was an inherited system. The main issue was the water meter that was deployed was just substandard and sub-quality, and deploying a proper water metering system throughout this building would have solved the problem, and being diligent when the install was happening. By installing a plastic body water meter, you're dealing with tightening the water meter, where if you over tighten it, it's going to leak.
The meters installed were faulty. It created all sorts of problems in terms of readings. People were getting false readings. The condominium corporation was getting false readings. We couldn't reconcile. We were being brought into it as a property management, even though we had no power over it, really.
Outside of leaks and damages, the problems were people were getting underbilled or considerably overbilled because of the water metering issues. We were seeing people having 1 month consumption of water of $1,000 to $3,000, or 1 month consumption of 30, 40 cents. And that just didn't line up with what we knew was going on in a typical building with water consumption. So making sure that's not done, making sure that you've trained your mechanical contractor on how to install the meter correctly so you're not dealing with these issues.
So at this point in time, we have a developer that's engaged a company who's sold to their purchasers, has trusted a sub-metering company to come in and provide meters so that the residents that they've sold to can have control over their utilities. But at this point in time, those exact purchasers are now frustrated because A, their bills are wrong, B, the water meters may be leaking and causing extra damage, and C, they just sort of lose a little bit of trust in both the whole process and the sub-metering company.
For example, a water that flows through a meter, a pulse is sent back to the communication system. If that meter is not installed correctly, it leads to overpulsing or underpulsing, which leads to overbilling to the customer or significant underbilling to the customer, and leads to then an over-remittance or an under-remittance to the property management company or the entity that's paying the bulk bill.
So upon investigation of the pulsing system, we found that the meters were not actually sending 1 pulse for every 10 gallons. They were sometimes sending pulses at 5 gallons, sometimes at 15 gallons, which means that the data transmitted was never accurate.
If the right meters are not installed and the right flows aren't captured, it means that the sub-metering company won't be able to collect the correct amount of money from the unit owners, therefore providing less money to the condominium, which creates a cash flow issue where the condominium will be unable to pay the bill. This can create some really harmful issues to the developer, because at the end of the first year, if there's a large shortfall because the sub-metering company trusted to meter the water has not properly accounted for all the water consumption, it means there will be a shortfall at the end of the first year budget, and the developer may be responsible to pay that.
For water, we deploy a brass body, hardwired encoded register read water meter. We spend more money per meter than anyone else in the market. And the reason we do that is because we want to make sure as a sub-metering company that the meters are correct.
With the brass body meters that we use, because they're encoded register, we get accurate data every time.
There's no cost to the developer for any of the meters. Powerstream Energy buys, owns, maintains at no cost to the developers through the life of the contract all the meters within that building.
The benefit was Powerstream stepped in. We had a meeting with them. We outlined the concerns and the issues. They had taken over that contract just to do the meter reading, and they immediately corrected the problems at no cost to the corporation and the developer. And we're very professional. We were very grateful for that, and working together with them certainly showed us the difference between them and the competitors.
What Powerstream did in that particular example completely changed the way we as managers understood the world of sub-metering. But what they are focusing on, and what we're seeing more today than we've ever seen, is brand. the importance of getting a repeat customer, the importance of someone that you've sold a home to, telling someone else, I would definitely buy from this particular developer. They provided me with a tremendous experience.
When you work with Hezi, you're working with a company that's backed by the largest municipally owned LDC in the country. Because of that, we take on some of the traits of the utility. We're a long-term asset owner. We're in the business of owning assets for the long term. There's no private equity backing our company that's going to come in, invest a bunch of money, and flip the company after that investment's grown. We install high-quality meters because we want to be long-term asset owners. We're the company out there that's buying sub-metering contracts from other providers.
In hindsight, we're really glad to have been part of this experience because it helped us learn a lot more about the sub-metering world and help our clients avoid these problems in future. And that's one of the main reasons that we trust Power Stream Management Services with all of our metering and consulting needs, because they really do understand this world. They do understand everything that it takes to get this into buildings. And it's more than just a sales team looking at selling you a product.
In my new company, Smart Energy Recovery, we work exclusively with Power Stream. We won't work with anyone else. Because of that, we're very concerned about our brand, and we want to make recommendations to our clients. We want to be able to back up that recommendation and know they will be happy with who we recommend. It affects us as well with those recommendations.
When it comes to sub-metering providers in Ontario and probably throughout North America, we have absolutely no hesitation whatsoever in recommending the team of Power Stream Energy Services for any of sub-metering needs.
All right, fantastic. Thanks to our friends at PowerStream. That was a really well-produced front of house presentation. Great production quality, really informative. Thank you. Dan, are you with us? I think you're there, aren't you? Yes.
I am. How are you?
Fantastic. Really well, thank you. How are you doing?
All good.
Excellent. So terrific presentation. Obviously, you're having an impact on the market. I know if Julian and Tasso are speaking so highly about you, you're either really good at what you do or you pay them an awful lot of money to say what they did. I think it's probably the former because they're outstanding professionals in this industry. So as I said, great front of house presentation. I think we all get what you do and how you do it and why you're different. As we wait for some questions to come in, take us behind the scenes, take us back of house a little bit. Let us know what's happening in the industry. What challenges are you having? What are the biggest problems maybe that you are helping existing developments overcome?
I think one of the biggest problems we're seeing, and goes back to being on the panel last week, is shared facilities. And as more and more developments are becoming more and more complex, getting that sub-metering company involved early enough that you're able to properly meter all the shared facilities and they're billed out to the proper entities. The days of a one tower with, just a straight condo are long gone. That more and more condos now have ground floor retail, mixed use office space, multiple condo corporations. Getting your metering company involved early is key to ensuring your facilities are metered properly and there's no cross subsidization amongst condo corporations when that building is eventually turned over to the property management company to manage on behalf of the board.
So we did speak at length, and by the way, thank you for participating on the panel this year. That was really interesting. I have no idea how you guys actually nailed it the way you did. We've never had that many people on a panel, and everything just happened on time. It was absolutely terrific. We have a question here. We have a question from Danny who says, do other competitors, provide the same level of services as you do? If so, how do you separate yourself from them?
I'd like to think we're kind of the service level experts from start to finish of a project. One of the great things about our team is that it's the same group of individuals that have been with this business since we launched in 2013. You pick up the phone, you're going to get the same person answering if you have a question regarding metering as you're going through the process of constructing your building. And then with our customer care, it's all local. You're not being outsourced to a third party. You're not being outsourced to another country. You're not being outsourced to anywhere else. Everything we get is local. I think that's kind of how we separate them.
Okay, perfect. Dan, just a moment. I just want to remind everyone, please put yourselves on mute. It is Zoom, and hey, it will be helpful when somebody's just to get through this. So another question here: how small of a multi-residential does it make sense to use you guys for? Are you adaptable towards 5 or 6 plexes, for example? That's from Adam Wilson.
Yeah, we are. We don't say really no to anything. We look at every project individually to ensure that it can be metered properly and correctly, which at the end of the day is what everyone wants to do. And how we get involved by doing that is meeting with you as a developer or a property management company, coming to site with proper COVID protocols in place and seeing what the building or the complex looks like to make sure it can be done. But there's no real minimum size that we look at. We're doing a 5-unit project right now in Grimsby that, you know, I think the developer is going to walk away from happy.
Mm. And what's the process like when you go? I mean, when you're going into new builds, fine, you're part of the initial infrastructure that gets built. Can you speak to some of the complexities that you face when you're going into existing and you're replacing aged or ineffective existing infrastructure?
It's a little bit more complex, but not as complex as you would really think. It's working closely with the property manager. You're going to have to do some building shutdown or some unit shutdowns to put a new system in, but with proper protocols and working closely with the property management team on the projects we've done from let's call it a retrofit or replacing an existing building, we've seen no issues. I think at the end of the day, the old sub-metering companies being removed for a reason, and it's a welcome change for the residents to know that they're going to be sub-metered by PowerStream Energy Services and have their best interests at heart when it comes to billing.
Okay, your area of expertise, I really haven't been involved in your side of the development business at all. So forgive me for not having better questions to ask. And in the absence of anyone else having a question, I'd like to ask you the question that I asked Justin a minute ago, and that is, what is the question you wish people would ask you that we haven't asked yet that would help share some additional information and knowledge?
That's a great question.
Favorite question.
I think we're seeing a lot of, why go with you versus someone else when I, have the 2 proposals in front of me. Company A is, my residents are going to be charged less than you charging. What should I be cognizant of when I'm reading a proposal for sub-metering? And I think the one thing that's often hidden are fees. And when you work with us, as per the video, everything's transparent. There's no hidden costs, no hidden fees. There's no upcharge on any of the cost of power, any of the cost of water. I think being cognizant of that and asking those questions, developers or board of directors or property management company, asking those questions from the sub-metering providers, what am I missing? One of the benefits of being owned by a utility and having a utility as a parent company is you take on a lot of traits of the utility, and that being as transparent with our customers as we can be. There's nothing hidden with us. The admin fee is the admin fee. There's no regulatory fee. There's no COVID recovery fee. There's no bad debt recovery fee. All the bad debt remains with us. And I had a developer a couple of weeks ago just say to me, I don't believe you. And I said, I don't know how else I can convince you to believe me that the bad debt remains with us. It's our responsibility to collect all the amounts that we bill. We remit back to the developer or the condo corporation everything we bill, not everything we collect. And we don't have any additional charges to make up for any of the bad debt that we see at buildings. And as COVID and working from home and the significant restructuring of jobs has impacted this industry, there's been a significant bad debt that's sat on our books that we have not put back to the developer, that we have not put back to a condo corporation to collect. That's the one thing I think I wish more people looked at and asked questions about when they're looking at proposals. And kind of what am I missing? What are those hidden fees?
What sort of warranty from Danny? What sort of warranty do you offer the customer?
So all the meters we maintain and own. If they break down, we come and fix them at no cost to the customer. I'm not sure if that answers your question in terms of warranty. There's no cost to the customer at any point in time if a meter breaks down for us to come and fix it, to switch it out, to swap it out, to do anything with a damaged or broken meter. Okay, excellent.
I'm just going to mute everyone, and then I want you to unmute yourself in a second, okay? Because we've got a couple of people who haven't quite got this mute thing down pat, okay? So Daniel, I'm muting everyone. And if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself, that would be great. Are you still there?
Still here.
Fantastic. Any other questions from anyone? Warranty, is it limited in terms of length of time, in terms of term?
No, the typical term for a contract to provide services is 10 years, and the warranty for us to continue servicing and replacing defective or damaged meters is within and embedded in the life of that contract. So there's no limited 2 years. At no point in time, if a meter breaks down because it's defective or not working properly, would we ever come back to the customer or a condo board or a property management company and include a charge to fix or replace that meter. We bear the cost of all the meter replacements.
Fantastic. Okay, if there aren't any other questions, Dan, thank you so much. Thank you for your sponsorship. Thank you for your participation in the panel, the shared facilities panel. We actually did have one come in. If we do have time, let's do this. Gosh, you guys, this is like an auction. You get in just at the last minute. I'm about to hit the gavel, right? 2 questions. But before we go there, for some reason, I don't have the ability to mute Mac or Mark. Mac Kunamela or Mark Iogna. Guys, can you make sure you're muted? Because somebody's got a lot of paper rustling going on in the background. If you wouldn't mind just checking that out for me very quickly. Okay, next question. Any comparison with your company and Just Energy, who apparently is suffering right now because of Texas?
No, I don't believe so. We're a sub-metering company. I'm not too in tune with exactly everything that Just Energy does, but I don't believe so.
Okay. Another quick question. How do you detect or rectify meters?
So we're constantly looking at consumption in units to look at what's high or low relative to norms within that building and norms within that portfolio, and using that as a barometer to kind of see if something's out of whack with what we would see normal, and then doing follow-up investigations through that process.
Fantastic. Dan, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Having you here. Great presentation. Thanks for answering all our questions. If anyone wants more information about PowerStream, you can contact Daniel directly or through us. They are available obviously on the web as well. Terrific company. Everyone that we know of speaks very highly of them. Sounds like a really intriguing value proposition for developers as well. So make sure you check them out. Dan, thanks a lot. Okay, moving on. Second to last presentation is from our friends and partners at Terranet. Again, another organization that's been with LandPro since the very beginning, 6 years ago. We know them very well because we do a lot of work with them in terms of back-end protect your boundaries work. But more recently with a really interesting agreement we've put in place with them on GeoWarehouse, where now you get to see some of our products there from Protect Your Boundaries. But today we have Teresa Carindia who's going to join us, and she's going to talk to us about how to use GeoWarehouse mapping to find a property and confirm title information. Teresa, good morning. How are you? Oh, you're on mute. Still on mute.
Good. Sorry about that.
There you go.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Fantastic. Glad you're here. I've got your presentation here, then your video that I'm going to play, and then I'm sure there's going to be a ton of questions. I've got a few, but I'll try not to hog all the questions. Okay.
So, absolutely. Yeah, and I have John Singh with me as well to answer any questions also. So thank you so much.
Good. So let's get everyone to mute if you don't mind, and let me do my screen share again. I'll be good at this by the end of this, I think, right? Okay, we'll share the screen and away we go.
Hello, my name is Teresa Crendia, and I'm the training program leader for Teranet Commercial Solutions. Today, we're going to take a look at GeoWarehouse. GeoWarehouse is a web-based centralized property information source that provides state-of-the-art mapping and research tools, as well as professional reports. GeoWarehouse services real estate and land professionals across Ontario. In this session, we're going to learn how to search using the map, how to adjust the map view to obtain a better view of the property, how to request the property report to confirm ownership information and property details, how to access title documents such as the parcel register, plan, and instrument images, and finally, how to search for comparables. When you log into GeoWarehouse, you'll notice that at the top of the window, there is an Omni search bar, and this allows you to search by address, by the name of the owner, by the PIN, the property identification number, which is the unique identifier from Land Registry, ARN, which stands for Assessment Rule Number, instrument or plans, which are statutory documents. You'll also notice that there's a drop down to the right of all. And another option you can search by is by lot and concession. Now, if information is not known about the property, you can also use the map search to adjust the map to the area of interest and to choose the property from the map window. To search using the map, you adjust the map window using the tools available on your device. I'm using a computer with a mouse, but you might be using a trackpad, or perhaps you're using a tablet where you use your finger or stylus. Simply go to the area that you're interested in and zoom in close to the area of interest. Once you get in and around the area that you're interested in, there are some map tools that are available that will help you to review the property to ensure that you selected the property that you're interested in. You'll notice in the top right of the window, there's a number of different icons. And the two tools that I use primarily are the map layers. And if I choose that icon, you'll notice it's going to expand and tell me what the legend is for the different map lines. Green represents ownership. If I choose the third icon that looks like a flag, that is the map view option. And it allows me to change my map view to two different options. The default is standard road map view. If I wanted to take a look at the area using aerial view, I can choose the second option, and this will bring up aerial imagery from Google. Google has two different options. They have the bird's eye view if the checkbox is here, or if I remove that, it will show me just the standard aerial imagery from Google. And depending on area, it looks like there's only the standard aerial imagery in this area, but sometimes there may be more than one option. The third option that's available is the enhanced aerial. And if I choose that, that comes from a company called First Space Solutions. And one thing that I love about this aerial imagery is that time of year where leaves are not on tree, which it's quite lovely to see, you know, the bottom corner of this lot where there's a number of trees. But if there are other buildings or anything underneath the trees, it's difficult to see. And by choosing the enhanced aerial, you get a different view of the property so that you can do a visual scan and review to see if this is the property that you're interested in knowing some more information about. To choose the property from the map window, you can take your mouse, if that's what you're using, your trackpad, and click on the left side. Or if you're using a tablet, just touch the screen on top of the property and an information window will open. From this window, there's two different options. You can choose Street View or Property Report. If you choose Street View, it's going to open up Google Street View imagery where you can review and take a look at the property from the Street View imagery that's available. To return to the property on the map window, you can choose the arrow that points towards the left. in the top left corner of the window. To request the property report, choose Property Report. And it's going to open up with the GeoWarehouse Property Report, where you can validate information with regard to this property. The overview will tell me who the owner of the property is, as well as the date in which they made the purchase. There is a section that will tell me the area and perimeter of the lot, as well as the complete legal description in this section. The next topic is property details, and I find the navigation within this report, the easiest way to move through topics is to choose it within the gray banner. The property details has Google Street View imagery and information about the property, including the 9-digit PIN. You'll notice on the right that there's an image where you can purchase a copy of the parcel register. If you choose this image, it's going to open up to the GeoWarehouse eStore, where you can purchase an official Ontario record of ownership. And this is going to tell you about all encumbrances that are registered against the property. Are there any mortgages? Are there any liens? Anything that affects the equity or perhaps the land use of the property? And this is, again, the official record from Land Registry. You can include deleted instruments if you want to find historical information, and you put the checkbox here, or if you would like to just obtain information on current status of the property, you can just choose quick checkout or add product to cart to purchase a copy of that record. The next section is site and structure. The site and structure section has aerial imagery as well as map view imagery. It will tell me the area and perimeter of the lot, as well as give me a measurement for every angle of the property. And this one actually has a number of angles because it looks like there may have been changes through the history of this property. You'll also notice that the area, I'm going to make note of the lot size. I can remember that for when I do my comparable search in a little bit. Now, another feature that I really love, and it's one of my favorite tips and tricks in GeoWarehouse, is the manual measurement tool. How I can access that is I choose the square with the 4 arrows that point out. You'll notice that when I zoom into the map window, I can do some manual measurements of any attribute within the property. I simply choose measure in the top left corner of the window, and then I can place points on the map. So if I wanted to know the width or the depth of the lots, I can place 1 point at one end of the lot, 1 point at the other, and I'd be able to measure that out. So you'll see that it has the distance in the very bottom of the window, as well as it's placed a point on the map right here. To close out of this section, I can choose the squares that point in, and it closes me out. Valuation and sales section will show me the complete sales history of the property since the records were automated or since the PIN was created. Plan surveys and easement section will tell me if there are any plans that are deposited in Land Registry or registered plans that are available for purchase. I can actually see that there are 3 different plans that affect this property. You'll notice if I choose them, it's going to identify on the map window which properties will be referenced within that plan itself. So that can help me with deciding which plan would be important to purchase if I needed to dig a little bit deeper to find out some more information. Now, within this section, we also have an easement indicator, and this comes from our partner, Protect Your Boundaries, where it's going to tell you if there may be an easement that's detected on this property. Now, whenever you see that there may be an easement on a property, if you feel comfortable, you can dig in yourself and you could purchase the parcel register. There's another link to it right here, or you could also take a look at the plan documents, or you can take a look at any instrument that may be referenced within the legal description. In this case, when I take a look at the legal description, I can see that this property is ST, which oftentimes stands for subject to this document that's listed right here. If I wanted to get a copy of an instrument image, I need to know the instrument number, and then I can paste it into my search bar, and click on search. And then it will identify if it's registered against any property. To purchase an instrument image, I just click on view details and I would be able to purchase a copy of that document for $3 per image. The one thing about looking at statutory documents such as the parcel register, plan images, or instrument images is you need to interpret the information and understand how it truly affects the property whenever you're looking at easements. And I actually prefer to get the Protect Your Boundary Easement report. And the reason why I like to do this is because when you choose to purchase this report, it's going to be put together by a researcher that has the experience in analyzing and explaining what the easement is and how it affects the title. Whenever you purchase this report that comes from Protect Your Boundaries, it's going to include a copy of the parcel register as well as a copy of the easement documents. And it's going to be written in plain English, so it'll help me interpret what it actually represents when it talks about the easement. You can make your choice about how you would like to access that information, whether you would like to pull the title documents yourself to review it or choose the Protect Your Boundary reports. In any event, either option is available to you through the GeoWarehouse property report. The final topic that we're going to explore in this session is how to find comparable sales. When you've selected a property of interest, you can search for properties that have sold in the area of the subject property by choosing comparables in the gray banner. A search criteria window will open where you may define the area using a radius or polygon. The radius, if you choose the drop down, you can choose the size of the radius. When you make this choice, that may be a little bit bigger or smaller than the area that you're interested in. And you can resize the radius using the resize option to make it as big or small as you like. Another option is the polygon draw feature, where you may draw a very specific polygon around the area where you feel those comparable properties are. And the thing I love about polygon is you can do any shape or size that you like to capture the area where the comparable properties may be located. You may define the criteria by the time frame in which property is sold and choose from preset options, or you can choose your own custom time frame. You can define the property type using land registry property type. Land registry property type is defined as freehold, condo, road, or railroad. For this property, I choose freehold. You can define the price amount by moving a toggle left or right, choosing the drop down, or typing in the amount. Lot size is really important to use whenever it comes to larger size lots. This feature is only available for freehold, but when I'm looking at a property that is a large lot, similar to this one, where it's 90 acres, I usually use the drop down so I can define the lot size. Now you'll notice that there are options available in the drop down to choose for the lot size. Unfortunately, you're not able to type that amount into the window. That's a feature I'd love to see enhanced in the future. So typically what I would do is I'd choose that I want to search for properties that are a minimum of 25 acres in size, and they are run to 100 plus acres, because I want to find properties that are slightly smaller than 90 acres and slightly larger than 100 acres, so that I can find the properties that may be comparable. Once I finish setting my criteria, I can choose Find Comparables. Results will appear on the map window as well as in a list, and I can continue to refine my search by adjusting the parameters that I've set. And then I can choose the refresh option to continue to update information until I have a list of properties that I feel are comparable to my subject. And if I want to remove any of the properties based on lot size, I might choose lot size to remove the smaller lot, or I might choose lot size again to identify those lots that are much larger than my subject, until I come up with a list of properties that I feel are comparable. And then I can generate a printed or a PDF report of the properties. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about GeoWarehouse and how it may help you in your business. If you're a land professional, such as an architect, builder, developer, engineer, or property manager, and subscribe to GeoWarehouse, you may have a specific need that GeoWarehouse may solve, but need help with the workflow. Please reach out to me and we can set up a training session. If you would like to learn more about how to subscribe to GeoWarehouse, please contact John Singh for more information.
Terrific, terrific, terrific. Thank you, Teresa.
Oh, thank you.
Let's get the video back. Here we go. So, yeah, I mean, we started working with you guys, gosh, it was, well, probably close to 7 years ago, but more recently, this integration of our easement reports and our easement counter here at Protect Your Boundaries has really helped us get some great insight into the depth of tools that you guys have at GeoWarehouse. And it never ceases to amaze me. Every time I'm in there using GeoWarehouse, that there's more tools and more information. I know you've got some great training sessions on. So I encourage everyone who is in the business and uses GeoWarehouse to take advantage of some of Teresa's training there. So we have some questions here. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Here we go. Okay, I think I missed the part of using the map, circle, or polygon feature to find comps. Okay, that was a video. And Gulab, you've been amazing at asking questions. Thank you. You've taken some of the pressure off me. I so appreciate it. With that, I think, why don't you contact Teresa directly and she'll show you maybe on live if that's okay. All right. Let's go to another question here. Is it possible to buy names and addresses of owners' data for one street at a time?
So actually, I'll take that question. What would be the reason to buy this? So this is John Singh with Terranet, and I'm the GeoWarehouse sales rep. So what would be the reason to require ownership and full street addresses? And maybe I'll just continue. If this is for marketing purposes, then that would go against the terms of use of GeoWarehouse. GeoWarehouse is a research tool. It's also designed to mitigate risk. So when you fill out your listing agreements and also your agreements of purchase and sale, this is a vital tool for that type of use case. If we're using it for any type of marketing, perhaps you're sending name letters to owners on streets, then that would go against our terms of use. But definitely send me some more questions. I'm more than happy to answer them. So any questions, just send them in a separate email. I'll be glad to follow up directly.
So John or Teresa, what about zoning? One of the things that you don't have in there is zoning information. Is that something that is accessible, or do you have any plans to add it?
That is actually, that is something that we don't currently have within GeoWarehouse, a zoning layer. It's something that I'd love to see as an enhancement in the future, but I don't have any exact time frame for that. So it's definitely something, if we do include in our offering, that we'll definitely promote and let our clients know about. But at this point, we don't have it.
And I can actually speak to that a little bit too, because on the Protect Your Boundaries side, we've been trying to get zoning as layers, and every municipality has its own zoning information data, and many of them it's in PDF. They're very rich, data-rich PDFs, but it's very difficult to get that line drawing, the zoning sections out and superimpose them directly onto ownership parcels. So as municipalities move forward and start going more to a GIS model for their zoning, so organizations like us or Terranet can look to start integrating that data into their platforms. How did I do, Teresa? Good.
Perfect. Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
Okay. Can we search for Megan Holly? Can we search companies? Sorry. Can we search? My eyes are going squiffy here. Can we search comparables for properties within the same neighborhood if the property sold is under a different board?
Absolutely. Yeah. So in GeoWarehouse, all of our sales information comes from Land Registry. So we have all solds information. So for our real estate clients that access it through a board, you may belong to a specific board, and in your MLS system, you'd only have sales that are recorded that are represented by realtors that belong to your board or share data with your board. Our data comes from Land Registry. So whether it was a private sale, an exclusive sale, it was sold by a realtor that belongs to another board, we capture that information from the solds information that's deposited in Land Registry. So we have everything.
Okay. Do you have environmental reports?
No, but that's an interesting idea for a future enhancement. At this point, we don't have anything that has environmental reports.
Okay. From Mazia, let me just read this first before I read it back. Can we find in one shot the total registered mortgage, or in plain language, the total registered debt And this is specifically, or as an example, if there was a notice of power of sale being served.
So in GeoWarehouse, you have access to title documents such as the parcel register, which is the official ownership record, and it will show you all encumbrances that are registered against the property. So if there's a mortgage, it would be called a charge, and you'd be able to see the date it was registered, the document type, and then the face value that was on that document. It doesn't tell you the current value of the mortgage. Similarly, if there's any other documents that are registered, like a lien or anything, a notice of security interest that might be registered for a high efficiency furnace and air conditioning that might be being paid off on a monthly basis, you'd be able to see registered documents on the parcel register, but it's the official record, so it's in language that may not always be as clear or easy to interpret. You would need to take a look at that information dig a little bit further into that.
And then for solds, how old are the comparables from the land registry that come in from land registry?
Right, so that's a great question. Our information comes from documents that are registered. So on the day of closing, typically lawyers will prepare and register documents, and they'll be associated to the parcel of land. Now, our information is still dated by 10 days. So we have to wait 10 days from the date of closing, and then we'll capture it at our next update, which we do on a weekly basis. So it may be 2 to 3 weeks from the time of closing before we'll capture that information when you do that comparable sales search or look at the property report.
What about, does that also go for items that are registered on title or changes on the parcel register? Same thing?
Yeah, so everything is still dated by 10 business days. However, there is one caveat that I'd mention. On the parcel register, when you look in the GeoWarehouse report, in the overview as well as in the property details, it tells you who the owner of the property is, and that's based on the certified owner of the property. Now, the ministry, whenever documents are registered, the Ministry of Government Services reviews and certifies the ownership, and they'll update the information within there. However, their update cycle may be a little bit longer than our cycle. So it is possible to see in the sales and history section a transaction for sold. However, you might see the owner name may not be updated yet. And that might be just because of the time frame in which you're looking at that information. Everything in GeoWarehouse should be updated within about a month to 6 weeks, just depending on how soon the ministry looks at it. But if you need to know real-time information, something that happened yesterday on a property that you needed to know who the parties were on the document or what have you, you have access to the parcel register, which is actually real time. So for example, if right this minute a mortgage is registered and then I request the parcel register right now, I'd see an entry for that mortgage. And if I wanted to get a copy of that document, I can make a note of the registration number and request a copy of that document as well. So it's real time information.
Great. Okay. From Maziar again. Searching a condo unit is tough. Any tips for finding a specific unit number?
Absolutely. And that's something if you're using GeoWarehouse, you may want to contact me directly and I can show you where I have my webinars or even just give you a tip and trick just to describe it visually. But if you search by, say, just the address of the property, for the condo building itself, whenever you get a result, the very first result has a little condo building icon beside it. If you hover above it and choose the arrow that points to the right, there is a select by level feature that's available. So you can choose whatever level you believe the unit's on, and it will expand a list and you'll be able to see every unit within the building. So it's a fantastic feature to help you narrow down and find a property where perhaps there's an address problem.
And then if you want to go further, get a hold of the condo plan, which you guys sell and we sell as well, and actually make sure that there isn't a difference between the nameplate on the door and that's the municipal address and the actual condo unit. And I guess, Mazia, that's exactly what you're speaking to there. It's tough to locate the actual unit. And you've got to make sure the one you're looking at, you've got the right documentation for.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because some buildings may skip floors or they may just start randomly. The way they've pinned it, it doesn't make sense, but yeah. Just is. So
fantastic, fantastic. Teresa and John, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and your participation at LandPro. And I know we're going to be speaking a lot more, Teresa, because we're putting on some some webinars in the Boundary Wise Academy, which I'm about to talk about, because it isn't enough for me to have to do this. My colleague Jess has said, and at the end, you're going to do a talk on boundary trees. So yay, thanks so much.
Really looking forward to it. Thank you, Chris.
Very good, thank you.
Was there any sarcasm there? I think there was.
Oh, I'm not taking it though.
Guys, thank you very much. And to our audience, please contact Teresa, please contact John. The folks at Terranet are so approachable and they are so available to help. And they really do have a passion for helping folks in the real estate industry, specifically realtors, make great, safe deals and guide their clients with the best possible information and data that's out there. So please use them. They're there for you. And the platform really is quite something to use. And the difference between realtors who use GeoWarehouse and realtors who don't is the difference between realtors who are really out there doing great, safe work and those who are shooting a bit from the hip and putting their clients potentially in a little bit of danger. Anyway, I'll get off my high horse. I'm getting vertigo here, but I am very passionate about this. Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon, okay? All right, folks, last segment coming up, and yeah, it's me, and we're going to talk about boundary trees. I'm going to switch hats right now because if you were part of the conference and you were on the conference, you know that I was the MC for the day. I'm the CEO of Protect Your Boundaries, but my team and I are also the creators of the Boundary Wise Academy, and I've gone through the names here today. It's great to see some of our graduates here. But the Boundary Wise Academy is something that we put together because we felt that there was a big chunk of knowledge that was missing in traditional real estate education. And this goes to the real estate law side as well. And specifically, our pedigree, our background as land surveyors, we believe there was a ton of information that wasn't exposed to you that could help you make better decisions with your clients, whether you're on the listing side or the buying side. And so the Boundary Wise Academy is a series of courses that you take online. We'll talk about it in a minute. But one of the courses that we have that is Who Owns That Tree? And we're going to talk about boundary trees, everything you ever wanted to know about trees and property boundaries. I know it sounds thrilling, doesn't it? I'm going to talk to my wife later on. She's going to say, "What did you do today?" I'm going to say, I did a seminar on boundary trees. And she's going to go, "Oh my God, what's happened to you?" Anyway, but to make it absolute real life, it is the first day of spring, it feels like. And I'm about to talk about boundary trees. And lo and behold, my next door neighbor has his chainsaw out right now, and he's taking down a tree that is on his side of the boundary. But if you hear the sound of chainsaws in the background, it's Steve next door doing his thing. So it's not a boundary tree though. And in a minute, you'll be able to tell me exactly why that is. So I'm going to share my screen right now. And let's bring up this presentation. This is not a recording. This is live. So if I stumble, oh, that's why. So here we go. Hopefully you can see that okay. They're all good. Jess, can you confirm that we're good? I think we're good. Yes, we're good. Jess says we're good. We're good. Okay. Who owns that tree? Now, the reason why I think this is really important content for you, and it doesn't matter whether you're a realtor, a broker, whether you're a real estate lawyer, whether you're a developer, doesn't matter what aspect, what side of what part of this industry you're in. At the end of the day, if you own a property, and you may eventually deal with this. If you sell or buy properties, if you develop properties, trees are an integral part of our urban landscape. And again, whether you're in Toronto, the GTA, or further afield, I live in Waterloo here. So this is a critically important topic because it can get you and your clients into quite a bit of trouble if you don't pay attention to it. So let me pick the right window here. There we go. So what we're going to go through today is the problem with trees, and we're going to look at 4 quick examples. Then we're going to talk about when is a tree a boundary tree, capital B, capital T. It's a technical term. And we're actually going to look at specifically how you determine whether a tree is a boundary tree or not. And from there, if it's determined to be a boundary tree, we're going to talk about who is responsible, who sets those rules, and how do you get more information? How do you resolve tree disputes? Any key questions, the key questions that we hear, the 7 questions we hear all the time, we're going to ask them quickly. And then we're going to go into questions in the Boundary Wise Academy at the end. Okay, this should take us about 20 minutes. It'll take us to about, I don't know, 12:45 at the latest, and we'll be done. So the problem with trees. Let's look at 4 examples here. Here's a good one. There's a fence. And in all of these examples, we're going to assume that the tree grew in this direction, not that the fence was built. And obviously this fence was built under that tree. Hopefully it was built on the boundary. But this is an example of a tree or branches that have grown or that are over the property line. And let's just assume that the fence is on the property line, right? That's probably an issue. Here's another one. The tree trunk is over the property line. Here's a tree trunk that's grown. You know what? You've got to love that neighbor who plants maple trees or oak trees, saplings, little tiny saplings right on the boundary, right? What do you think is going to happen in 20 years, right? It's not going to grow only on your side. You're planting basically an issue. So this is one of those cases right there. But here's another thing we see a lot of: tree roots heaving a patio. Now that's all well and good if it's your patio and it's entirely on your property, but what happens if that is a tree on the other side of the fence on your neighbor's property, and that patio is on your side and those trees have grown and they're starting to heave your patio? What happens there? Let's look at another one here. This is tree roots heaving a retaining wall. Bit of an extreme example here, but again, you can imagine here, you've got a retaining wall between you and your neighbor. The retaining wall is on your side of things. Their tree roots have grown to the point where they are heaving the retaining wall and splitting it. Whose responsibility is it to remedy that? So the 4 examples: the tree is on the boundary and one neighbor wants to remove it, the other doesn't. Here's one situation that we see all the time. So the tree is technically on the boundary. One neighbor wants to remove it, the other doesn't. What do you do? Number 2, the neighbor's roots, tree roots, are interfering with my patio or my wall, my fence, my pool, my grass. Number 3, the neighbor's tree canopy is hanging over my house. And number 4, I just want to remove my tree. Can I just do that? These are the situations we hear about all the time. So let's get a little bit technical here. The anatomy of a boundary tree. If you're a realtor in the GTA, especially if you're in Toronto, please pay attention to these slides because they are super important in terms of you being able to speak to your clients on either side of the deal. So here's a lovely tree. And I want to introduce you to a concept, to a term, and it's called the branch collar. The branch collar, just wait till you throw these terms around with your clients. They're going to go, wow, this person really knows their stuff. The branch collar line. The branch collar line is the line at the bottom of where it's like the armpit. Call it the armpit of the branch. The lowest branch on the boundary side, the lowest branch sticking out, it's the crease where the branch sticks out. Okay, that's the branch collar line. So the collar is around it, and so the line is just underneath it. It's the point at which the branch comes out of the tree. That's the branch collar line. And on this particular diagram, it would be here. You see the branch to the right, and you see where the collar is there. And you see that's the point at which sort of the armpit with the arm hanging up, that's where the arm goes out, the branch goes out. That's the branch collar. Similarly, on the other end, you've got the root collar. Now, the roots also split off from the trunk. And the root collar is the circular line around the root as it comes off the trunk. And the root collar line is the top of that line on the boundary side. Okay, so in this case, you've got the root collar line, and in our diagram here, that's the root collar right there. Okay, so root collar, branch collar. What you need to know is that is technically known as the trunk. That is the trunk. It's the space, it's the part of the tree between the root collar and the branch collar. So if any part of this, if even a centimeter of this is over the boundary, this now is classified as a boundary tree. This is a boundary tree, and that is a technical term. This is a boundary tree. So if any part of the tree that is considered the trunk, the portion of the tree between the branch collar and the root collar, is over the boundary, it is now a boundary tree. Now, it may not have started that way, but it may have grown that way. Last year it wasn't. This year it is. It's so important to know that these things change, and that what was the case 5 years ago may not be the case right now. So if any part of the trunk is over the boundary, it's a boundary tree. What does this mean? This means that ownership and responsibility of that tree and anything to do with it are shared equally. So if your neighbor's tree 5 years ago was entirely on their property, but over the last 5 years it's grown, and that big branch now has grown even more, and it is determined that the branch collar, where the branch collar is now, there's a portion of tree that's a centimeter over the boundary. You now have equal ownership of that tree, but you also have equal responsibility and liability for anything that goes on with it. If none of the trunk is over the boundary, it's not a boundary tree, okay? Simple. If none of what we define as the trunk is over the boundary, it's simply not a boundary tree. Ownership and responsibility rest with the property owner whose property the entire trunk is on. This is regardless of where the roots go and regardless of where the canopy goes. So if the trunk, capital T, if it is not a boundary tree, but the roots now go under the fence and heave the patio next door, the neighbor, I shouldn't say has a right, but they can come after you and say, look, your tree is damaging my patio, my pool, my whatever, and they may choose to take some sort of action against you. But it is not your tree, it is the neighbor's tree because as defined by that trunk. I hope this is making sense to you guys. So here are the people you need to speak to when it comes to this. And there are some municipalities that are a little more intense, if we can use that word, about trees in their urban landscapes and their urban canopies. So first of all, the arborist. The arborist is critical in this. If you have a dispute over a tree, it is the arborist who will tell you exactly where the root collar is and where the root collar and branch collar are on that tree. And they will even mark them for you. Because then the surveyor, come to us, we're good at this, but any surveyor, the surveyor will tell you where the boundary is, and they'll show you the location of the trunk, the root collar and the branch collar, if marked by the arborist. They'll show those on the survey plan. So you will get a diagram that says, here is the boundary, and here is the location of the tree, root collar, branch collar. So you will have a legal document that tells you whether or not this is a boundary tree or not. But those are your two keys to actually getting the data that you need in order to be able to either defend or substantiate a claim. Next is the municipality, and the municipality plays a pivotal role in all of this. The municipality dictates your process and your permit requirements as it pertains to trees, and municipalities tend to fall into two different camps. We'll talk about those in a second. But if your client is dealing with a boundary tree issue, a tree issue with their, let's call it a tree issue with their neighbor, go through this process. First of all, start off by saying, let me take a look at it. Am I confident in where the boundary is on this particular property? Is it the fence, that kind of thing? If you're fairly confident in that, but always question it, because 99% of fences, as those of you who are graduates of the academy will know that 99% of fences are not on the boundary, but you will know that, you will see it, and you'll be able to say, let me just eyeball where the branch collar is and the root collar is, and let me see just in a very general way what I'm seeing here. And you might see that the canopy is way over the fence, but you can see that the trunk is 6 feet away from the actual boundary, the fence. So you can be pretty certain that that's not a boundary tree. And so all responsibility rests with that particular property. Anyway, you get the idea. When it comes to, though, how you then proceed or what you suggest to your client, it has to come back to the municipality because every municipality is slightly different. So we're going to look at some examples here just to drive the point home. Whose tree is it? We're going to look at a few examples. Your property is on the right-hand side. Your neighbor's on the left-hand side. Fair enough? So there's the branch collar line. There's the root collar line. Some of you are looking at this very closely saying, Chris, I think it's over a bit. Just bear with me, it's a diagram, okay? I know, John, I can see you right there, you're looking at it. So where is the boundary? So if the boundary is there, now remember, a boundary isn't a line on the ground. A boundary is a plane, right? It's a plane. But so if that is the boundary between you and your neighbor's property, then it's your tree, right? Because the branch collar and the root collar that define where the trunk is, in this case, the trunk is way over on your property. Makes sense, right? What about if it's here? Those are those very specific points there. What you can see here is that the branch collar determines that the top of the trunk is over on your side, right? Just. But look at the root collar. There's that tiny little wedge there that's actually over on the neighbor's property. That tiny little wedge, if you see the blue circle, that it's crossed with the red and the green lines, it's in the top left wedge. That little tiny bit makes this entire tree joint ownership, joint responsibility. It's a shared tree. This is a boundary tree now. What about this? Well, that's obvious, right? Shared tree. What about this? This is a shared tree as well. Look at that little wedge down in the bottom. Even though the majority of the trunk moves away towards your neighbor, that tiny little wedge at the bottom on the root collar makes it half yours, equally yours, and also you're equally responsible for it. That one is also a shared tree. And finally, number 5, it's obvious. This is not a boundary tree. The boundary is way away from the defined trunk, and therefore it's their tree, it's your neighbor's tree. Even though the canopy is hanging over on your property and dropping leaves into your pool, etc., etc. Hopefully this makes sense, guys. You've got to be careful and you've got to be really particular about it. And what I want, those of you who are in real estate, I want to urge you not to take, not to make commitments to your clients in terms of definitive statements around this. The process is, you got to, if it's in question, get an arborist, get a surveyor, talk to the municipality, and make the decision based on that direction. Be careful you don't step into more responsibility and more definitive statements that will get you into trouble. So, the Ontario Forestry Act. This is a really important thing. The Ontario Forestry Act defines what a boundary tree is. So that definition of root collar, branch collar, trunk, that is defined by the Ontario Forestry Act. And it's the same for every tree in Ontario. It defines what a trunk is and therefore what a boundary tree is. It also dictates that you cannot cut a tree down, sorry, you cannot cut a boundary tree down without both parties consenting. And that's even if you've gained a permit from the city. You've gone to the city, you've said, I want to cut this tree down. The city's given you a permit. You cannot cut that tree down, even though you have a permit, unless you have written consent from both parties. Because don't forget, if it's a boundary tree, your neighbor has equal ownership of it. You have to have consent from both. Now, there was a legal case that went through a couple of years ago where somebody got consent from the city, somebody got a permit from the city to cut the tree down, but they didn't have their neighbor's consent. They went and cut the tree down, and the neighbor sued and won because they didn't get consent. Their consent wasn't given. So please make sure when your clients are talking about cutting trees down, you say, whoa, time out a second. This is, you might get yourself into trouble here. You have to get consent from the city. Now, the City of Toronto has since changed, and their permit will not be granted until they've seen that consent. But other municipalities across Ontario aren't quite there yet necessarily. So let's talk about, we're almost done here. We'll talk about boundary trees in the municipality. So I've got 2 columns here. One is private boundary trees and the other is private trees. I've introduced the word private here because I want to differentiate these, which are trees that are either on your property or straddling your property and your neighbor's property. I want to differentiate those from trees that are maybe straddling your property and municipal property, street lines, right? We're not talking about the municipality being on the other side of this conversation. It's about you and your neighbor. So boundary trees, 3 things to know. Bylaws at your municipal level govern the removal of boundary trees. There are applications, there are permits, there are fees, there are inspections. It's a bit of a rigmarole in some municipalities, but it's the bylaws, it's municipal bylaws that govern that. You can call the city, call bylaw, they'll give you the lowdown for your municipality. And there is a process to determine the status of ownership of a tree. Finally, there are rules that dictate at the municipal level. There are rules that dictate how you deal with a dispute relating to boundary trees. Some municipalities say it's a civil matter, go deal with it yourself, hire a lawyer. Others, like Toronto, get involved and they have departments. They have a department that actually helps you work through this. Now, private trees, these are trees that aren't on the boundary, right? This is a tree that's right in the middle of your lot. It's obviously not a boundary tree. It's nowhere near the property boundary. But still, in most municipalities in Ontario, many municipalities in Ontario, bylaws govern what you can and cannot remove. And every municipality seems to have a different set of guidelines. Oh, if the diameter of the trunk is more than this, then you can't cut it down. If it's less, then you can. But if it's over this and between that, then you can cut it down, but you have to replace it with something. Go to your bylaw. Go to bylaw, and they'll tell you exactly what the situation is for the municipality. There is also a process for dictating how you get permission to remove that tree. Again, don't do it. This is one of those things where it's not a good idea to beg for forgiveness afterwards. You will get in so much trouble. So many people get into so much trouble. It's not worth it, because once the tree's down, the tree's down. And a lot of municipalities don't take that very, very lightly. So I guess the key takeaway here is, even if you own the damn tree, the municipality dictates how and when and if you can cut it down, and what you have to do after the fact to maintain the future of the urban canopy. Tree removal in the province, just to give you a few examples here. So Toronto, Markham, Vaughan, Mississauga, Brampton, and Hamilton, and there are many more obviously, in those municipalities, permits are required and you must have the neighbor's written consent, and each one of them have a very specific process you have to follow when dealing with a boundary tree. But the flip side, and here are just 3 examples, Ottawa, Kitchener, and here in Waterloo, it's a civil matter. And they say, follow the Forestry Act guideline in terms of defining whether it's a boundary tree or not. In Ottawa, I know there's a 50-centimeter diameter distinctive tree exception that you can't just cut it down, but really it's a civil matter. There are some municipal restrictions in bylaw, but for the most part, sort it out yourselves. Hire lawyers if you have to, hire arborists, figure it out yourselves. This isn't the work of the municipality. We don't want to get involved. So for more information on this stuff, please visit the Boundary Wise Academy. And those of you who've been through it already, I know you've enjoyed it. This is going to be part of one of the next courses we do, but the content is in there if you do want it. So the key questions that we answer, that we're asked and we answer: who owns the tree? The answer is whomever's land any portion of the trunk is on, as defined in previous slides, and defined by the Forestry Act. Who owns that tree? Whoever's property the trunk is on. Whose responsibility is the tree? Whoever owns it, not who planted it, okay? And ownership is defined by question 1. See question 1, right? Can I just cut the tree down? No, call your municipality. How do I resolve a tree-related dispute? Call your municipality bylaw office. Can I trim? That should be trim, my apologies. Can I trim my neighbor's overhanging branches? The answer is usually yes, providing you don't weaken or kill the tree. You can't cause any structural damage. And when we say weaken, if you cut a branch off that it is then determined that has weakened the tree or imbalanced the tree to the point where a storm is going to blow it over because now it's not balanced, you're in trouble. So usually yes, providing you don't weaken or kill the tree. If your client is asking this, tell them to hire an arborist. It's the best money they'll spend. And the arborist will tell you whether or not the removal, how much you can remove on your side. But you are allowed to remove and trim the canopy of a neighbor's tree, a private tree. It's not even a boundary tree, a neighbor's tree that's hanging over on your property. But check with bylaw, please. Okay, do we have any questions? Let me just look at chat here. Let's bring chat up. Okay. Okay, Megan, can we cut a tree on my property front lot? Do I need a permit? Yes, you do. Call your municipality, by the way. I think I've said that a few times. Maybe I hadn't said it enough when you asked that question. Depending on the municipality, and yeah, you're probably going to need a permit. You may need a permit or not. Here in Waterloo, no, providing it's not a tree that's a boundary tree with us and the municipality. For Mazia, how do you define boundaries of private versus municipal trees and ownership of it? Can we look for boundary of the land using geo-warehouse boundaries with the same rule defines, or would the boundaries be calculated from the curb? No, the boundary is not the curb. You need a survey plan for that. That's where the survey plan comes in. Come to Protect Your Boundaries, type in your address, see the survey plans. The survey plans will tell you where that front boundary is, but even then it's difficult to take a survey plan and look at it on the ground, see it on the ground. If you have a dispute around this, you've got to get a survey to mark that boundary out for you. Unless you have a topographic survey, which actually shows that tree on it. But call a surveyor, call us, we can help you out in that situation. Again, it's knowing who the experts are, especially if you're in real estate, right? Arborist, surveyor, municipality, it's your triage for your clients. pushing them to the right experts. Can you trim from Ali Reza? Can you trim a boundary tree without neighbor's approval if the branches are causing problems with your roof? Yes, right? As long as you don't weaken the roof, as long as you don't weaken the structure of the tree or kill it. The answer is yes. But again, I would call an arborist because the arborist might let you go more aggressive than you thought you might want to. From Troy, so Chris, if it's not your tree, but then you are responsible for cleaning those falling leaves. Yep, you are. That's how it goes, because theoretically you enjoy the benefit of that canopy, I guess. But yes, you are responsible for cleaning those leaves up. Cornell, thank you, Chris. You're welcome. From Mazzy again, who will be responsible for the damages caused by the root of our trees to the neighbor's structure? How can it be fixed? I know the root is essential for the tree survival and can't be controlled by the owners. Yeah, don't be cutting people's roots, right? If it's the neighbor's tree, don't be cutting their roots. Again, unfortunately, well, first of all, go to your municipal bylaw office and ask if they have a process for dealing with this. It's not a boundary tree, it's my neighbor's tree, it's 50 years old, the roots come through and it's heaving my patio, it's heaving my pool, whatever. The municipality is probably going to tell you to call an arborist and find out what if the tree can survive with that root being cut. That's the first thing, because if the tree can survive, fine. If it can't, not. But it's starting with the municipality, then getting an arborist in place. And if you're really having a hard time resolving it, if it's like heaving a beautiful pool with patio and poured concrete and everything else, you might have to get a lawyer involved. And in some municipalities, you're just going to have to go straight to that last resort. Ali Reza, what if you have the odd branch is below the branch collar line? Does the lower branch count as the branch collar line? If it's one of these little sprigs, probably not, because you can just brush it off and bring it off. The answer, so it depends on the size of it. If it's substantial and germane to the structure of the tree, yes. It's the lowest one, it's the lowest major branch that goes out that counts. Mark, if you can trim a neighbor's tree branches, can you also cut the roots if they cross onto your property? Oh gosh, I wouldn't do that because I don't know if I'm going to kill the tree. I don't know if I'm going to weaken the tree. I wouldn't be doing that. I'd be calling an arborist in and doing it that way. Because yeah, trees need those roots and they're very, very sensitive, I guess. I don't know enough about it. Again, arborist and municipal office. Okay, very quickly, guys, if this was valuable to you, check out the Boundary Wise Academy. Boundary Wise Academy is an online education system program for Ontario realtors, 8 courses not taught by OREA or the New Humber courses, 7 to 10 hours of video training and course notes. It's also the last time you'll ever see me wearing a tie. Thank you, COVID, for that. You take it at your own pace. There's personal teaching assistant support and quizzes and exams all the way through. It's high protein, it's dense, and it's highly, highly educational. And it's tough to get through. Jove, you're welcome. Mazia, you're welcome. What you learn, you get knowledge, tools, and process. If what you got out of the last 20 minutes on boundary trees was valuable to you in the way you got it, this is going to blow your mind. You're going to love it, boundarywise.ca. I'm not going to go through all this stuff. You've been here. You've been on this call for long enough. But the 2 things you do get when you graduate, once you take the exam, once you graduate, you get a brand new professional designation. It's called the Boundary Wise, Certified Boundary Wise. You are now Certified Boundary Wise, and you get the CBW professional designation that you put on your website, your business cards, and promote. You also get hotline support for a year. If you call us and say, hey, Chris, I got this issue. Can you check out the survey plan, this easement thing, whatever? And we'll say, yeah, absolutely, $150 an hour, glad to do a consult. If you are a Boundary Wise graduate, you just call. And you can call as many times as you want, and we will answer as many questions as you have for a year. And that's what you get for your annual renewal every single year. The benefits to you, you will get more leads because because we will drive them to you, and you have something to promote yourself with that most others don't. You will win more listings because you will be more convincing in your listing presentations. Again, you will have something in your back pocket most realtors don't in terms of understanding land and helping helping your clients, your potential sellers understand that it's more than just about pretty pictures and drone videos. You're going to protect your higher commission rates, right? Which is so important. There's so much downward pressure on your commissions. This helps you justify those higher commission rates and separate you from the guys who are cutting their commissions right down. And it's going to help you complete safer deals. There's nothing worse than being chased after the fact you want to generate more business. You want to be out there lead generating and doing the positive work of selling. You don't want to be having to spend a chunk of your time having to deal with trailing liabilities on deals that you didn't pay quite enough attention to. So please come to boundarywise.ca, check it out. I think it's $350 to register for the entire thing, not just per course, for the entire thing, $350. And I think if you message Jessica on this, she might give you a discount code. But nonetheless, we'd love to have you on there. So that concludes the BoundaryWise presentation. I'm going to stop that share. I'm going to come back here, and I'm just going to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. We appreciate you coming to LandPro. We appreciate you sharing your time with us. We appreciate you being here today. Your questions have been phenomenal. Any follow-up you want to do with any of our speakers today, please contact Jessica at protectyourboundaries.ca, and she'll be happy to direct you into the right direction. Remember, from LandPro, if you want any reruns, if Netflix gets a little too boring for you and you want some reruns, you can go back anytime for the next 6 months and rewatch those. Some of them are quite interesting. And hopefully we'll see you all next year for LandPro. Thank you for your time. It's 12:41. I think it's time to get outside for a bit and enjoy this beautiful spring day. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.